Hey guys, welcome back to My Sixth Sense. We're back, same time every weekend. We're attempting to do this. Scott had a kind of a scheduling conflict, and we are actually having some construction done to our home that was done last night. Finally got done, so I didn't really have time, unfortunately, to wait because I'm going to spend the rest of the day putting our house back together. Always funny when your significant other says we need to do that because it's not we, it's you.
Never is.
Anyway, so we've had quite a lively week. We got a lot to talk about, a lot that I'd like to talk about with the confirmation hearings and among other things, his immigration policy is kind of like kicked in, or this administration's immigration policy kind of kicked in. And then we've got planes are just they're falling out of the sky. They're just falling out of the sky. Last time a plane did that, it was 9/11, and so there was no better guess that I could nab after Scott had a scheduling conflict more than Jack. Jack likes to talk about that stuff, and I'm so thankful. He's had a kind of a wild trip trying to get his child to sleep lately, so I am so thankful that you were able to come on. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, man? I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, dude, been a long time.
Go Birds.
Go, dude. I'm wearing Redskins pants too. We got shredded, absolutely shredded. I'm just so thankful that the NFC East, it's not the Cowboys and it's not the Giants. I'm going
to be honest. The only game, I know we're not here to talk about this, but real quick.
Yeah.
The only game I was truly nervous about all season was the NFC Championship.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Because you guys,
the Skins came out
Jaden
of nowhere.
Daniels
oh my God.
is incredible.
Yes.
The defense is great. I got to say that was maybe of all year, because I don't think football has been super entertaining this whole year.
Right.
I can't enjoy watching football because I'm just a diehard Eagles fan, and I am stressed out unless we're 2 or 3 scores ahead. So
right.
I don't enjoy football. I don't.
Right.
I mean, I have to watch it, but I don't enjoy it. But the most entertaining minute of football I've watched all season was in that championship game where Frankie Louvu just kept diving over, and I got to give him credit because he is one hell of a player.
How in the world are you going to stop the tush push? You know, so it's
why not? Because they're going to score regardless.
Anyway,
might as well just try to time it so that you catch it on the snap.
And if you don't catch it, they get it anyway. So it's just
doesn't matter. Right.
It's a touchdown either way.
I got to give him props because, and I mean, Dan Quinn has done a heck of a job with that.
What is that? I mean, you know, it's so funny.
I am so nervous for the next few years.
I know. My grandmother passed away this year or last year, and when she moved to DC, she really wasn't into football, and she lived like she could see the Skins practice facility and became this like big Skins fan. And so it was like she passed, and then all of a sudden it was like, wait, hold on, DC's back, you know, like, and I have tried on multiple occasions to drop this team. I've tried my best. I have moved to Florida. I have moved to North Carolina. In every town, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just because we don't get the games in our area, but I just can't, because it's like, what happens in the off chance that I'm like, okay, I'm done with the Skins, and then they do what they did this year, and it's exactly the.
That's what I'm saying. You gotta wait. I mean, being an Eagles fan, it's like you go through a lot of shit.
Yes.
A lot or crap. Sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of crappy years. And then you end up with a juggernaut of a team.
I agree. And
Saquon Barkley.
I was about to get to that, dude. It is so great watching that. I like how we're spending some time on this because it's so necessary, honestly. But watching that camera inside the Giants GM's office, and they're like,
I watch
it's
that
kill me
once a week at least.
If we send Saquon and they do good, and it's like, okay, well,
and just it's such vindication.
Pay the man his
I've
money.
gotten from all my friends who are Giants fans.
You said all your friend.
All my friend. Yeah, I don't even know if I have one.
You have one giant friend,
right? But
Scott.
Right, literally. And he gave me crap. Oh, he's going to be injured. He's not good, and this, that. And now it's interesting how it's changed to, next, he has only got so much time left because well, you guys robbed him of a Hall of Fame career.
He is running all over. It's like he is, well, obviously he's got something to prove, right? Because it was that whole big debacle about him getting money. And
well, also the last couple years of his contract, of his deal in New York, they were all 1-year contracts. So it's
Right.
like
He couldn't put his feet down. Like he couldn't. Yeah, that's what he was saying. I heard
someone
him.
give him his due. He's obviously worth it.
I mean, what in the world, dude?
He
That
could
backwards
have been
hurl?
he could be the best running back of all time, and we may never know.
Absolutely.
Statistically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stats wise.
Yeah.
We may never know. But yeah, he's the most athletic, most incredible
And-
running back I've ever seen. And I'm a big LaShawn McCoy fan. I mean, he was excellent with us. My God. But I don't know. This kid's special.
You know, I was very also surprised to see there was really only 1 or 2 incidents between Philadelphia fans and Skins fans, and
they actually got along pretty well from some videos.
That makes me so
seeing.
happy because it's like we can all agree that F the Cowboys, right? Like we can all get on board with that.
One of us has got to take down the Chiefs.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. And so it was so nice to see. Yes, I saw a confrontation walking out of the game, but like I'm just saying, that's honestly, you don't go to the link and in another team's jersey. Unfortunately, this is kind of sad, but also shows the love for their team. It's the reality, right? There's a magistrate in the stadium, but I thought it was nice. Like there was a video before the game of them being like,
and
Dallas,
I mean, it was
Dallas, and it's like,
it was a really good game up until the third quarter when we started just pulling away.
Yeah, that's what Jason Kelsey said on his podcast.
I mean, I was nervous, very nervous until that third quarter hit, and we just started ripping you apart.
Well, listen, congratulations.
Our defense is so good. Yeah, dude, I mean, I'd be definitely rooting for Washington in the Super Bowl if y'all made it.
And I am.
And my buddy said whoever won that
country,
game was going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm just hoping that we pull away enough from the Chiefs that
say
the refs
yet,
don't matter.
The entire country is rooting for the Eagles. I will tell you.
I mean,
this.
I'm gonna be honest. If I wasn't an Eagles fan, I wouldn't be watching the Super Bowl because there are on Twitter, or sorry, X alone, there are over 300,000 people saying they're boycotting the Super Bowl because of the refs scandal.
Really?
Because of the bad calls when it comes to Chiefs games.
God, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I don't blame
hard
them.
To watch.
I hope
either.
I hope it makes enough of a difference. I have to watch because I'm an Eagles fan and I want it. If we beat them, I want to see it happen, you know. But it's just, I mean, that's a whole other episode I could do. It's just this.
we need to start that. We need to start.
I know.
We should.
I have a little more
Sundays at 11:30. We should not do this. We should do a football. Like during the football
season. I could
season.
totally do a football podcast.
We should do it.
I'm a big football guy.
Let's get together. Figure this out.
All right. Anyway.
So the reason that we have convened today, outside of I cannot wait to hear Jack's take on the planes quite literally falling out of the sky. The hearings, all the Senate confirmation hearings, the ones that I care about at least, happened this week. RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, that guy deserves a medal. Yes, and his book, for anybody who cares to understand where anyone else is coming from, it is always good to read books that these people have written, especially if they haven't been sued for defamation over these books, which means the stuff in the books are factually accurate. If it's, written the way that Kash Patel wrote his book. So yeah, I got done with his book a couple of weeks ago after listening to him on some podcasts. And even before he was kind of considered, I put on Twitter, I was like, dude, it's Kash or nothing at the FBI, But anyway, the big one for me is RFK. I don't know how everyone else feels about it. 1 in 3 kids in this country have a chronic disease. We're not really sure why. Our foods, I mean, awful. The obesity rate is insane. I can't remember what the actual statistic is, but we use like 84% of the world's pharmaceuticals, and we're only 4% of the population. So it's not making us better. Obviously, all our kids are on Adderall and SSRIs, and I want to get your take, Jack. But I just don't understand why people have such a problem with this guy. I mean, he's an anti-vaxxer, which he clearly isn't. Doesn't say that in any of his books. Doesn't say that in public. To being unqualified, which I don't know what that means when it comes to these positions. Because if you look at the last 3, you had a guy in a dress.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer to why is more so coming from our perspective with a little bit more of an open mind and kind of look more at facts and statistics and whatnot, to form our opinions instead of just how we feel or what the TV tells us to believe.
Sure.
I think the why, I mean, it's very confusing to me as well, because I try to think logically and set aside emotions when it comes to things like this. So I think he's a great pick. I absolutely am behind him when it comes to the health of this country. I mean, I've been going through a lot of health changes in our household, trying to eat more meat, eggs, sourced from local small farms that don't use garbage and pesticides and whatnot.
Right.
I genuinely I really got into baking. I'm obviously I'm not trying not to eat bread, but I feel like my body would handle it better if I made it myself with good flours and things like that. And I made bagels the other day. It was really fun.
That's dope.
So it's dough.
Oh, dude, you did it. You did it.
So I very much believe in his agenda, right? Now the question of why are people not getting behind him? It is confusing, especially because these people who are so outspoken against him, either we're not alive when he was making his run years ago and was in the spotlight a little bit, or we're on board with him.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing that happened. It's the exact it's exactly the same thing that happened with Donald Trump.
Yes.
Is all these people who are so anti-Trump were totally with him when he was a Democrat, right? Now, I mean, put the parties aside, it's a little odd because he hasn't changed many of his views. Changed a couple, but he hasn't changed many of his views from back then to now. I mean, it even goes back, in a broader sense to, the fact that these same people who are up in arms against RFK for wanting to make the country healthy again, are the same people who were anti-big pharma, anti, big ag, anti-big everything. But now they seem to be supporting these people who take millions of dollars from them. And Elizabeth Warren herself virtually gave herself away in asking, asking him to promise to take money, to not stop taking money from big pharma. Like, are you out of your mind?
Such wild behavior.
And so I think what it boils down to, I think the answer to the why is much more basic and simple than any of these, nuance where it comes to actual stance on issues and legitimate reasoning. It could be, maybe 10 things, but one is Orange Man bad, and he's the president who's appointing him.
Right.
That's probably number one. That's
which
probably
he pointed out.
Yep, that's probably number one. Number two is they are so incredibly stubborn. The fact that they got their butts handed to them, that didn't, maybe open their eyes to say, hey, maybe we're doing something that the country doesn't like. Maybe we're doing something wrong. They're so stubborn that they will not give up their playbook that has been failing them endlessly, which is everyone I don't like and disagree with is Hitler, is responsible for killing grandmas, is, hates children, hates immigrants, hates anyone that doesn't look or think like them. When they are those people, I think basically they are programmed to disagree with who they are told to disagree with. I don't think they have any logical reasoning for it, because if you look at the logic and look at the facts and look at what the guy stands for and stands against, there's not much you could argue against him with.
Correct.
I was until he pulled out of the race, I was probably gonna vote for him.
I was too.
I very much like what he stands for, and I like how he's, Now personally, on a personal note, I don't know if I would label myself fully as, I mean, maybe I would at this point, because as an anti-vaxxer, but not 20, 30 years ago. I think more
Right.
recently, or maybe even longer than that, more recently, I think, if you look at more recent studies, kids who are vaccinated at all, and I'm not talking about COVID, I'm talking about your regular run-of-the-mill vaccinations that you get when you're a kid, when you're a baby, right? Like my daughter Georgia is not vaccinated. Jack has some vaccinations. But if you look at recent studies, you see the rise in, all these health issues that you're bringing up, autism, diabetes, anything, all the, ability to fight infection,
Right.
ability to
And
fight, it drastically rises above the unvaccinated kids. These are the vaccinated kids.
right. And I think his main point, he's never said that he
Right.
is
Well, so I
personally
think he's
anti-vax. And so it's like
similar to
what he's
me, is
right.
because
He's just
years and years ago,
asking.
I think vaccines were fine. But now
Right.
with the weaponization of them, because let's call it what it is, that's what Fauci has been doing for years now. Gain of function research, that's basically how to use this as a weapon.
Right.
And then it comes out that there's a worldwide,
Sure.
pandemic. A little sketchy. But that is horrible. And that leads people like me to, dig in, do a little more research and see that most of these vaccines are starting to have some funky stuff in it that we shouldn't be putting in our bodies.
Right. And when he first kind of came onto the scene, and I read the real Anthony Fauci. I was pretty blown away by that book. But like I was getting at, is he's not an anti-vax. He's just like, the question he posed was, if you're over 50, just if you're over 55, if you're 60 years old, do you have any friends who are autistic? And the answer is almost all the time, it's no. I don't know anybody
Right.
in my sphere or anyone I've ever known that has autism. It's like, right. He's just asking what happened when we went from a 9% chronic health percentage to now it's over 60%. It's 1 in 3 kids. And he's not saying the polio vaccine is bad. He's just saying we went from a vaccine schedule of like 6 to now 26, and you're giving a baby who's 2 days old a Hep B vaccine, and he's just trying to look at that. And he's saying, let's just release the studies and the information.
He's just
and
asking
let people
questions
make
about it.
a
He wants to
decision
find
for
out,
themselves, right?
Yes.
And it's like, that's the whole point. Parents should have the final say.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another thing that I think
vaccines,
he's against as well.
Right, which opens up a kind of a weird box, because this is kind of a side note where I believe that parents should have the final say when it comes to their kids, but there are some folks that like to mutilate their children. So in certain situations. But back to the point, back to like the RFK thing, is he has never said any of that, and that is a construct that was just kind of set up by mainstream media to discredit him. And Jack's absolutely right. He was as close to democratic royalty without being a monarchy as humanly possible, right? His family, like, I'm just saying, his uncle and his father both assassinated. They were for the working class, for the middle class families. They were against the man. They fought corruption, and then he gets to run for president. And yeah, some of his policies, like they changed because he was running for president and he had to do all encompassing stuff. I'm just glad that this administration brought him in to let him focus on like what he's truly, I feel like, kind of destined to do. And just reading his books, and you can see with these Senate hearings, it's like everything he's saying is not disputable. It's non-disputable. And to that point, these senators, all they're doing is just showboating. It's for a soundbite. They're not trying to see if he's qualified.
Oh, no.
They know he's qualified.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I read something. I wish I could pull it up because I can't remember where I read it. But that these Senate confirmation hearings are suggestions. I think technically in the law, and again, I could be wrong, but I think technically in the law, the president can appoint whoever he wants. These hearings from senators, these questions, are just to inform a suggestion to the president.
Okay, so it says confirmation hearings give the Senate who will make the final decision on whether to allow the nominee to take office, as well as the public opportunity to learn how he could be holding these important positions and what their objectives and priorities are.
Well, right, but I don't think it was designed that way. I don't think it's supposed to be that way. I think it kind of morphed into that over time.
Yeah,
with the rise of the administrative state.
You know what? I have heard the same thing.
Yeah. So again, I could be wrong, but I did see something about that. I got to remember where I read it from because, I mean, who knows? You never know with the internet these days. But yeah, I mean, how could you not? I mean, and that's another thing too. And I mean, it's going to bring me to a bigger point is look at the guy. I mean, be as superficial as you can be. He is how old? 70-something years old? Right? And he is in peak physical condition for a 70-year-old. He's in excellent shape. Right? And, I mean, look at the last, cabinet. I mean, you're looking at fat people for health and human services or whatever you're looking at, or trans, man thinks he's a lady sort of thing. Like, I think at the end of the day, it's not. They know. That's the thing. It's like I saw something yesterday about. I think it was in reference to the COVID vaccine and this, that, and the other. And it says it wasn't the and this applies to this and everything else that happens in government, right? These entrenched politicians. These experts are not ever wrong, right? They are lying. That's what it is. They know they're wrong, but they're lying. They want to push the people. I'm
going to put up on the screen real quick and let you finish.
Yeah, the establishment. I want to put up a picture
of the last health secretary. We're just going to have a picture up just so everybody can see what the last.
Yeah.
Screen. I have my cameras all jacked up. So keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, I want to use the picture as, so yeah, so look at this. This is, and they've been pushing this for years now, which is big and beautiful. And, if you have diabetes and you have thyroid issues, which I don't think are hereditary, I think they're more self-inflicted, how you were raised and what you're fed and whatever. Not saying all, I'm saying more. But this is exactly that. This embodies that in a picture. Is they want to weaken us. They want to promote unhealthy lifestyles. They want to promote addictions. They want to promote, and that's I watched a video, I think this morning, of this guy just walking around the streets of, I want to say, New York, interviewing psychiatrists, right? Just for short clips, just asking one question. How many of your patients have you cured? And every single one said 0. Maybe one said a probably BS number, but they all said 0 because they're pushing an unhealthy lifestyle. And now when you go into pharmaceuticals, they're pushing these poisons on people to keep them weak, to destroy their immune systems, to give them illnesses, to keep them sick, which is a big thing that RFK is against, which I appreciate. They want to keep us sick so that that's can't basically fight the only back.
Point. And that's what his point that he made was he's like, we use 84% as 4% of the world's population. We use 84% of the pharmaceuticals made in the entire world.
Yeah.
And we're not getting any better. In fact, we're getting worse. So 100%. Why not take a look at that?
Yeah. So it's like, you're over prescribing for money, obviously. And because, again, rise of the administration state, it's because these administrators in the government, these in-between people, make the laws. They, the middlemen between Pfizer and Elizabeth Warren, they say, hey, you want this money, you gotta make this okay.
Yeah. They're all brought to you by Pfizer.
100%. And so Of course, they want us sick. They don't want us to be able to fight back. I mean, they're actively trying to destroy the health of this country, and that's a big win for them if they can succeed in that to hold their power.
We're going to share this real quick.
Because nice. What are we going to do when they decide to really take over? Yeah, let's watch this.
We have an ongoing threat of an avian flu pandemic. There is a vaccine, by the way, that exists for avian flu. And guess what? RFK Jr. has gone out and said that he doesn't think it's safe. So
maybe he's right. What do we know about bird flu vaccines? What are we going to trust Dr. Fauci and the rest of these people? This is part of what I'm getting at here with the HHS. How can it be worse than right now? You're saying it's deadly. We're already living in a deadly country.
It could be worse. It could be worse by reducing vaccination rates and having polio and measles outbreaks and people dying. But again,
most of these children are going to die of diabetes, cancer, like chronic disease.
So then he should support healthcare for all, Medicare
I understand
for all.
that that's your position, but that's not what the American people voted for under Donald Trump. This is clearly like
what can he even do about nutrition at HHS? That falls under the ag secretary being in a much better position.
HHS
to deal with that sort of
dietary guidelines, as he talks about with SNAP. He will have immense regulatory authority. I mean, this is part of what I'm talking about with this vaccine thing. Look, I completely understand. And I used to be really in this camp. I just don't see how it could be bad to publish the studies and the safety data and then leave parents with some choice.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I don't understand the problem.
I do. It's people are programmed to hate who they have to hate and disagree with who they have to disagree with.
To your point, these people are so exceptionally captured that they have to say these things. They have to say,
they'll lose their job.
So you can't pledge to not sue pharmaceutical companies. Make a pledge to not sell onesies at a company you don't even work for anymore. I mean, it's like, and then when they bring up the hypocrisy, then that's when the problem is. I'm going to play just one more for RFK, and then I honestly.
But I do, before you do, I do also want to say quickly that I don't blame all of them. You know what I mean? Now, I think people above a certain age should be able to think for themselves and critically think and look at data and say, "Oh, I've been wrong."
Right.
But they're stubborn.
Right. And he also says,
and think about it. And I think I've said this on this podcast before. Imagine, like, I can't imagine for those, people the innocents that are caught up in terrible upbringings and taught to believe certain things and are trained to be gullible and stupid, right? I can't imagine believing something your whole life, right? Get up, especially when you get up in age, truly believing something that maybe once was decent at heart, right? Believing in this party or this line of thinking or believing certain whatevers, right? I can't imagine assuming that your entire life that all what you believe in is the truth and is the right way and is fact and is good, and then having it all debunked almost all at the same time, being like what you've been believing has been you've been led to believe.
I told
you've been
that
lied to.
I told that to Scott
I can't
yesterday.
imagine how hard that is to come to terms with that.
Well, that's basically what's happening, right? So it's like for the last 16 years, those people have been fed the same story constantly. And it's like, why wouldn't we be the enemy?
Right.
Because it's like their whole LARP, just basically they've been LARPing and not even known it for the last 16 years.
I gotta use that.
And so it's like now that the game has ended and it's like time to come back to reality. It's like, well, their whole life, their whole belief system is like, wait, it was wrong the whole time. So I got two more to share real quick, and then we'll move on to, I kind of want to talk about Tulsi and
sure.
Cash. Hold on. Oh,
oversimplified and dumbed down that we never really get to real truths. And it's why people up here are so separated from real people at home. So we talk about hepatitis B. It's a terrible disease. It could lead to liver failure, as the chairman said. But the reason you have distrust from people at home, why they don't believe anything you say, they don't believe government at all, is you're telling my kid to take a hepatitis B vaccine when he's 1 day old. You get it through drug use and sexually transmitted. That's how you get hepatitis B. But you're telling me my kid has to take it at 1 day old. That's not science. And so every person with a bit of common sense, even people who don't resist vaccines, I vaccinated all my kids. I believe vaccines are one of the modern miracles beyond all pale. The Speckled Monster is a great book about the introduction of the smallpox vaccine in 1720 into our country. All miracles. But I'm not a one size fits all. It's not all or nothing. I chose to wait on my hepatitis B vaccine, and we did it when they went to school. Does that make me an awful person? Does that make me an anti-vaxxer because I questioned the government dictate of whether I do it? And I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm only speaking for myself. But for goodness sakes, let's have an honest debate about these things. The COVID vaccine. If you ask me my opinion, the reporters run up and down the hall and they say, you still anti-vaccine? No, I'm pro-vaccine. But on the COVID vaccine, and on the COVID illness, there was a 1,000-fold or more difference between the elderly and children. If you don't acknowledge that, you're committing malpractice. You're showing your ignorance. If you say a 6-month-old must be mandated to get it, the science is not there. So all this blather about the science says this and the science says that, no, it doesn't. The science actually shows that no healthy child in America died from COVID. Look it up. No healthy child died from COVID. And so the thing is that it's 1,000-fold greater. So if you ask me my advice as a physician, if you were 65 or older or overweight and some other conditions, I would have said, hell yes, I'd take the COVID vaccine. The risks of the disease were real and much greater than the vaccine. But if you ask me, should my healthy 6-month-old get it? See, these are the nuances you're unwilling to talk about because there's such a belief in submission. Submit to the government. Do what you're told. There is no discussion. There ought to be a debate. You're not going to let him have the debate because you're just going to criticize and say,
the man.
admit we're not going to appoint you. But it's more complicated than that. And this is why people distrust government, because you're unwilling to have these conversations. And go home, ask your Democrat young mothers, your Republican young mothers, if they're vaccinating their kid for hepatitis B, and they're like, well, do I have to do it on day one? It's this precious little baby. Is there science to say you shouldn't do it? Probably not, but it's my kid. You know, it's like there isn't clear-cut science saying not to. But on autism, there's no good science of anything to show what causes autism. We don't know. It's a profound disease. I know many moms here and dads who have kids with autism. I know them personally. I've met their kids. But the thing is they saw their kids developing completely normal, maybe speaking 100 words go to no words at about 15 months of age. Now, there isn't proof. There isn't proof that the vaccines cause it. That's true. There isn't proof that it causes it, but we don't know what causes it yet. So shouldn't we be at least open-minded? We take 72 vaccines. Could it be? I don't know. 72, but we shouldn't just close the door and say we're no longer, because we believe so much in submission, we're not going to have an open mind to study these things. And so it's sort of this crazy notion. Schizophrenia, I would put in the same notion. You have a kid who's completely normal to 18 or 19, and their brain goes haywire. How does that happen? It's the most bizarre disease. Shouldn't we be open? Could it be our food? It might be vaccines. It might be our food, but autism is more common. I don't know about the schizophrenia statistics, but autism is more common. Shouldn't we want to be open-minded? Instead, we're so close-minded and we're so consensus-driven that the science says this. Well, science doesn't say anything. Science is a dispute, and 10 years from now, we could all be wrong. We were told in the beginning, 20 years ago, they did this enormous study, and they said, everybody over 50 should take an aspirin. I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. It makes sense. But you know what? 20 years later, they measured it, and they found if you had no heart disease and you were taking aspirin, your chance of dying from a brain bleed or from a stomach bleed were greater than the risk of heart disease. If you have heart disease, they still say take an aspirin. If you don't, they've changed their mind 20 years later. But would you have all said I was crazy and I should no longer be in public discourse if I had said 20 years ago, I don't feel like taking an aspirin. I ride my bike all the time. I'm afraid I might hit my head. But that's what country's about. It's what dissent is about. So just ask you to look at the larger picture and give the guy a break who says, I just want to follow the science where it leads without presupposition. I think really what we have up here is presupposition. You've already concluded. It's absolute that autism isn't caused by it. We don't know what causes autism, so we should be more humble in what we say. Sorry, I didn't get to a question.
Amen. $100%.
the next guy to go is the guy that had a FOIA request to get the Fauci emails, and he's holding up 300 pages of redacted emails. They're all redacted. And now how they redact things, Jack, is they just send him blank white paper with the header on it.
My God.
It's just 300 white pages. And he's like, could you explain to me why anything from the HHS would be redacted? And everyone's silent, and RFK's like, I don't know. And he's like, does he have a security clearance of some sort? Is this a national emergency that he's talking about here? Like, why would these be redacted? And he's like, can you make a pledge to unredact these? And yeah, of course, yes. The last video that we're going to get to on this subject is the hilarious exchange between Bernie Sanders. It's only a 2-minute long video, so not too long, but Bernie Sanders and RFK. And you know what's so funny about Bernie Sanders is years ago, not knowing much about politics as I do now, I was kind of a Bernie bro. I was like, dude, what he says makes sense. Like, he's for the little guy.
Right.
And so, now he is completely captured.
Well, I questioned him. I was pretty anti-Bernie, only because I didn't disagree with all of what he wanted to accomplish, or what his, morally, like what he was saying. But I think the way he wanted to do a lot of it was not good, or not doable, or not feasible, or would adversely affect Americans.
Right.
And I had a feeling that once he got entrenched, I mean, the guy hasn't had a job since he's had this job. He hasn't done anything with his life, literally.
Right.
But of course, he's, now this big face because he ran for president. He got all these people behind him. And what happened to him was absolutely wrong. I think he could have beaten Donald Trump.
Yeah, he could have. And
Hillary cheated
he's the
him
guy
out
who
of,
ran on the man and anti-war and all this stuff.
Well,
and he
right,
hands
but that
all
happens,
of his people over to Hillary Clinton.
All of these people.
Yes, that's absolutely. You're absolutely right.
You see, oh, hey, I can influence this and that and the other. I can make a bunch of money off of this. How many houses does he have? How many cars does he have? No way are you doing it above board. The guy's a criminal.
Right. Well,
so are most of politicians.
His whole thing about how, equal and fair. And it's like,
he gets more money than Elizabeth Warren does.
And that's what this clip is about.
He gets what? $1.2, $1.3 million?
You're ready for this. This is the banger here. This is the banger.
Oh, God, this guy is such a dumbass.
In many ways, President Trump and Mr. Kennedy have asked some of the right questions. Problem is, their answers will only make a bad situation worse. So let me ask Mr. Kennedy again. If we want to make America healthy, will you assure the American people that you will fight to do what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to every single American?
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? That's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie
calls him by his first name.
The problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies; it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh no!
Protecting their interests.
Oh. I thought that would no
interest.
Real quick, I just wanted to point something out, just in case anyone cares.
Oh
no! What's that? That
looks like he's pledging allegiance to the Fuhrer.
Is that a Roman? No, dude, couldn't be. Anyway, yeah. So that's all. That's pretty.
No, he has a D next to his name, so it's
so it's fine. Totally cool.
So it's not what you think it is.
Yeah. So anyway, you obviously can hear me and Jack's opinion on especially RFK. I think he's super qualified. The last couple have. Rachel Levine is just the absolute poster child for why we have such a problem in this country. The health secretary being an overweight trans
mentally ill
person right, is not health in any form or fashion. And listen, you're an adult, you can do what you want. Like, I truly, if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel, but you have no business preaching to the public about health.
And for the
And I'm sorry.
listeners, I did look into the information that RFK claimed. Bernie Sanders accepts more money than just about every other politician from the pharmaceutical industry. This past year was
Right.
1.2 or 1.3 million dollars. Next in line is Elizabeth Warren with about 800,000.
Yeah, Pocahontas.
Maybe it was just senators I was looking at, but yeah.
And I guess we don't really have to. I mean, I guess we can, or we don't have to. But you know, with real quick with like Tulsi and Kash Patel, the reason that so many people support them, and the reason that you have these independent people voting for this administration is when you see this wild pushback. We know, right, the people who read books or just kind of like pay attention and can think open-mindedly, know that when this lifetime bureaucracy is now pushing back against just these few people, we know those are the right people for the job, right? Those are the people that are going to actually do what they say. We know that Marco Rubio is a neocon, and that's why he flew right through his confirmation hearing. He's a senator, so he's in the club.
I did not like that pick.
I didn't. There's a bunch of them, but a bunch of them are going to fly through, right? And for a good reason, because they're part of the permanent bureaucracy. But the interesting part is the people that aren't flying through, and that's what the independent voter wanted was, okay, so why? Because here's the thing: is as soon as Trump, when he was president last time, that's when I started kind of opening my eyes. I was like, well, why do these people hate him so much? I don't understand. And I'd ask that question a lot, and I'd like try to figure out. And I realized it is the permanent bureaucracy, which that's what people call the deep state, right?
Yeah.
He is not controllable. And so these people, if you notice too, the two of the three people I'm speaking of, Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK, are all Democrats. Yeah. Basically, most of the things that Trump is doing is Democratic. I just posted a video on Facebook.
Well, it's a very bipartisan administration. It's an American administration.
Right. Obama said the same. He has, if not more, a tough immigration policy than Trump does, lest we forget the internet exists.
I mean, he was nicknamed the deporter-in-chief for a reason.
Right. And so this isn't something new. Bill Clinton was the same way. Yeah. I mean, even on issues like these hot button issues like abortion, Bill Clinton was safe, legal, rare.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just the way that Democrats have always been. And now, because it's so interesting, this Republican administration is doing the same things that, and so that's what we like to see. That's what people like me like to see, is like when Tulsi Gabbard, who is clearly qualified,
above and beyond. Yes.
I mean, is being called a traitor with absolutely zero evidence provided. Right. And we've already heard that before. Where have we heard that?
Well,
and it's been proven debunked, the Nunes memo and
no, well, that's the thing, is that is their playbook that they, for some reason, I mean, I gotta assume they just don't have another tool other than making these ridiculous claims over and over and over again and hoping that people listen to them. But if you look at the election, people are not listening to them as much anymore because they're tired of it. I mean, how many times can you hear someone called Hitler before you start to be like, and this is for the below average person, right? When you how long does it take until you start to think,
and
why are they calling him this, and is he really like this? And then they look into it and they're like, you guys are just out of your gourd.
Right.
They're all liars.
And if you think about the vitriol that is spewed from really both sides, but nowadays it's the left, why wouldn't they be that way? Like we were talking before about, for 16 years, they were told this guy's Hitlerian and fascist. Yeah. And before podcasting came around, that's who you listen to. So of course, free thinkers and people that don't agree with the regime are the enemy. And So that's, if anyone needed an idea or is trying to figure out, which no one on the left is, because they don't really care about the whole thing, is for whatever reason they argue from they want, if they have a problem with what I'm saying, I have to argue their point as if it's correct. Right. Like, and if I want to be educated on something, like, hey, I don't really understand this, like this whole white supremacy thing, can you explain it to me? It's like, no, you need to learn it. I don't need to explain it to you.
Well, because they don't know.
You need to tell me
that's
why
the,
I'm right.
That's the thing I was going to say before, is that's their, and it's been for years, that's their answer to everything, is if like for example, I was thinking, what if you asked your average before the election, if you asked anybody who was open about, I'm going to vote for Kamala, I think she's going to be great, if you ask them why, what about Kamala do you like, and what about Kamala do you think will make her a great president? They cannot answer without mentioning Trump. They can't. Now, if you ask your average Trump enthusiast,
right,
typically, now you will get some that answer, oh, well, Kamala's terrible, blah, 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 lesser of two evils, whatever. Sure, whatever. Okay.
I hate that.
Also dumb. Also really dumb. But more
dumb.
often than not, you will hear his policy.
Reasons.
Right. You'll hear paper. You'll hear what he stands for and what he's done.
A video of a guy who is a Democrat, and he's like, he's black. I'm going to go to a Trump rally, and we're going to show you how racist and awful they are. And he ends up showing up, and he's like,
has the best time of his life.
Has a great time. He's like, I don't really understand this. And he's like trying to get these people to be mad at him, but they just like won't.
No.
And then he goes over to,
well, because the media has falsely portrayed the people that they want to stay out because they know he's going to quote unquote drain the swamp. I honestly think he needs to widen that drain and make it a little bit bigger, and he's not doing enough. But
dude, this could all change, right? I'm not the type of guy that I'm not going to vote a Republican. I would have voted for RFK had he run for as a Democrat. Yeah. I don't care. I don't find somebody who's going to do that thing. But you have to remember, when I start seeing a little pushback from the so-called deep state, I know that's my guy. Oh, right. When they start fabricating stuff, no one's held accountable, those kind of things. That's when I start saying, well, there's something that this guy's doing that really upsets the permanent bureaucracy, which is what I can't stand. I can't stand liars and thieves. And that's basically what this whole thing has turned into.
Yeah. 100%.
And the good news is the internet exists. So all these phonies that act like they're morally superior, you can just go back 12 years.
Yeah.
And immediately find something.
It's really sad, honestly.
It is.
That they are so entrenched in their own BS that, I mean, I understand it to a point. I mean, if you are a corrupt politician and are making bank off of your corruption, then of course you're not going to want these people who want to actually change America for the better to be voted in. But it is really sad that we've gotten to this point. With all the fail-safes that the founding fathers put in place, we just got so far off track that it is acceptable and normal to effectively attempt to destroy these people's lives who are genuinely trying to enrich this country.
Right.
You know, it's really, it's a sad state of affairs.
Pelosi.
Speaking of Pelosi, did you see NVIDIA took a dump in the stock market less than a month after she sold, $1 or $2 million worth of the stock? It's so crazy how she sees this stuff coming.
Well, Nancy Mace was talking about, that's what I'm trying to find. Nancy Mace stocks. Let's see. She is on the floor and she is talking to, is it right here? Who can't define what a woman is? No, she's like, it is so rich that people, up here are talking to you about morality. And then she's like, I wonder, like, oh no, that's not it. I wish I could find it. I just saw it this morning. And she's talking about it. She's like, does anyone understand, like, Nancy Pelosi? Like, you guys, like, do you wonder why no one trusts you? Anyway,
I know.
so the last thing that I want to get to, and I want to hear your wonderful opinion on, is we've had in the last week two, and again, this is all going to be speculation. We really don't know the truth. And to be fair, I hope this administration has had two times where they could have been super truthful to us. One was the literal Toyota Priuses flying over New Jersey. And Trump said that he was going to let us know what it was, that they know. And then he told us it's ours. And then that was basically it. And so I don't believe a word of that. But
correct.
And now we've got planes that are one, it, to me, looked intentional. I'm going to get your thoughts on it. The helicopter ran into it. And then we had another failure on a medical flight over Philadelphia?
Yeah, and then there was a third one. I want to say in California.
Okay. What, really?
I got Sarah told me about it. I haven't looked it up yet. But there was a medical plane with only two passengers on it, I think. Two pilots took a nosedive. Yeah, so right as of right now, until more information comes out, I mostly agree with President Trump in his Twitter assessment of what's going on with these plane crashes. I think a lot of it absolutely comes down to DEI. I definitely think that people are, and I looked into how the requirements for getting your pilot's license and any level of pilot's license has changed over the past couple of years. I mean, of all occupations, you would hope that the people who fly planes, especially commercial ones, I mean, really all of them, you would hope that there'd be a very rigorous and strict process to obtain that license. You would pray to God that that's the case, because you have other people's lives in your hands, right? However, that it is not merit-based anymore. It is filling quotas based on the color of your skin or what appendage you believe to have, whether you do or not, in your pants. And I think that's a big part of it, but knowing who I am, I have one question is, are the drones and the planes linked?
Right.
And where we are right now, it's a waiting game to have a little bit more information available to us.
Do you think they'll actually let us know?
No, but there is no way to prove that. But I have a hunch that maybe there's a possibility they could be linked. Two, is when you specifically look at the Black Hawk that crashed into the other plane. If you look at the flight path, it was very odd. Right.
And it was 100 feet above the required hovering height. So.
But also, if you look into what it takes and how an Apache or a Black Hawk helicopter is operated and flown, you need a lot of training to pilot one of those things. And it looks like it was on purpose, is all I'm going to say.
That's what
It looks like it was on purpose. It was flying erratically. And also, again, I mean, if you look at aircraft, there's a whole ton of technology in there. I mean, this is probably my least leaned towards theory, but there's a whole lot of technology in these planes and helicopters, right? If you look at, I think, a month before the first one, shoot, I wish I pulled this up. I wish I had it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had something to do with autonomous, or you or I can pay money, and I'm sure have like an hour-long training session to fly these enormous aircraft, Black Hawk helicopter, you name it, autonomously, like from a desk.
That's wild. Yeah.
So that's a little odd. Yeah, it was Lockheed, right?
That's what I'm saying.
That is a little odd. Again, obviously, we know two people were allegedly in the vehicle. I haven't seen their dead bodies, so I don't know for sure. Just like, the Challenger explosion, I have seen their living bodies teaching classes at various colleges. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But something's wrong. And it's not these are not you can't have them be coincidental.
They just have such an opportunity to be truthful, right? There's this administration,
but they
won't.
Truth,
right? We're getting JFK, we're getting RFK, and we're getting MLK. Let's keep it going. Let's release as much classified information as we can without harming state secrets.
Yeah.
But yes, those are your opinions are exactly the way that I felt. And when I watched it, I'm like, it's just so strange. And, we need to take a breath, right? We don't really know what happened. Not that they'll probably tell us, but to say that, Trump took over 7 days ago, now planes are falling out of the sky and it's because, it's like, we need to look back. It's just like, everyone's talking about eggs, right? And then the biggest thing that people are talking about kind of to move a little forward is, like the immigration policies, right? These are policies, what we can end with this, that have been democratically installed, I guess you would say, for the last 25 years, 30 years. This is not a new thing. It just got so out of control in the last 4 years that it's right. It requires a cleanup. Now, do I think they should use Gitmo? No. I don't think they should use Gitmo. I think that if they were going to talk about the 14th Amendment and they're the jurisdiction thereof, then they're going to have a tough time doing that and putting them in Gitmo. But I mean, agree. Again,
there are a couple people I have in mind that do belong there, but not the ones that are
right. And so that's another thing too, right? So we've got about 4.5 minutes to talk about immigration, but
that's all right.
We got the whole Gitmo thing. You release these criminals, like these are actual criminals, right? These are that have committed heinous crimes, are going to go back to their country of origin, and who knows if they're going to stay there, right? We're not sure if they're going to go to prison in those countries, and there are two ways of thought.
Didn't Barack do that too? He completely emptied the place.
Oh, he was supposed to, but he didn't. That's just because of the bureaucracy got a hold of him. But no, so like my one thought I have is, okay, so you're out. You've been deported. There you go. We're even. But you come back here, you do get put in Gitmo.
Sure.
Right? Like if your country says, hey, listen, we're going to facilitate you to get back there, and we catch you, you're going to Gitmo. Outside of that, I just don't. I don't understand the vitriol, and I understand that there is going to be a lot of pain, and it really is unfortunate that a lot of these people, a good majority of these people, are decent people that are trying to make a living and whatever. It's just you didn't do it the right way, and it's affecting our economy. Go ahead.
No, a big argument I hear from the semi-right thinkers is, which I don't disagree with, is that it disadvantages regular Americans, which there's too much evidence to support that claim. But
very true.
More important to me is the people that are fleeing a less than ideal situation in another country and want to come to the greatest country on God's green earth and do it the right way. They're getting affected, I think, more so. What a slap in the face it is to say I can not only skirt the rules and the line that you spent so much time, effort, and money on to get here, but out of it, I'm getting paid by the Democrats. Get free housing, get free this, that, and the other. Are you kidding me? That's disgusting.
Well,
I'm sorry. And I, you know what? I definitely support President Trump getting rid of the birthright citizenship, because he is correct in saying that it was designed, and rightfully so, when we freed the slaves, that any children, of course, are citizens, even though they were wrongfully shipped over here and sold to us by their own people.
Right.
Cough, cough. Regardless, absolutely, they deserve to be here, 100%. I mean, they went through some horrible, horrible stuff, and they worked to make this country, to help make this country what it is. Absolutely.
It's something like 77% of Hispanic voters agree with these policies.
Oh, 100%.
I'm looking at polls right now. Let's see. Okay, so we've got 62% agree with mass deportations. 64% agree with the complete the border wall.
Yeah. Well, listen,
49,
when I was sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. Deport emergency declared on U.S. border, 56%, 62% deport all illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
These polls are not just from one side. These polls are everywhere. And you see, like, even Eric Adams goes on Tucker Carlson is like, we are baroque. And he's currently being indicted for taking plane upgrades from the Turkish government. And he went to the White House.
I think he's being, and I don't like the guy. I think he's a terrible mayor. Right. I think it's a witch hunt. Well, because he has some sort of common sense.
Well, that's right. He said he went to the White House. He's like, we can't afford to do this. Like, I can't afford these. He's like, when we say sanctuary cities, we don't mean ship in 1 million to 2 million people. We can't afford this. And the White House told him, he says it. White House said, listen, like, you'll figure it out. And he's like, that's not how this works. We don't just figure it out. And he said one White House staffer, senior staff, told him, it's like a gallstone. It'll pass. And Eric Adams is like, well, why don't you pass the gallstone?
Right.
Like, it's not for me to pass. Like, I can't. No. And then all these other governors are getting on, or mayor.
It's so unfair to the citizens of this country. But like little anecdote, before I moved to South Carolina, I was living in Chatham, New Jersey, and we had a neighbor move in like a couple weeks before we left, across the street. For the guy was from Brazil, legal immigrant, and he was moving from Newark to Chatham. And my wife was, talking to him, and because he had kids and we wanted to give him a moving in gift and whatever. And she was talking to him and she was asking why he moved and whatever. And he was like, I can't stand all the immigrants in Newark.
That's wild.
This is an immigrant.
Yeah, that's wild.
And you know what? We have to stop calling them illegal immigrants, because being an immigrant implies that you go through the immigration process and you are legal. They are illegal aliens. Alien is someone foreign. That's it. There's nothing racist about that. It's the facts. It is what it is. They're not immigrants. They didn't immigrate. They snuck in.
Right. And they're like, all these people at the White House press briefing, and they're like, so how many of these are criminals? And she's like, well, all of them.
All of them. Every single one.
Legally.
Yeah.
So,
and listen, whether they're doing it for the right or wrong reasons, doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're putting these women and children in harm's way, because these people, these men who obviously don't care about their families, are sending them with these coyotes.
Yes, and they're like, oh, they're separated from their families before they left Mexico.
Well, right, and the rape and the murder and the abuse that goes on through the trafficking process before they even get to the border is horrific. And the president of Mexico and all these politicians that are sending these people over here are completely complicit and okay with this. Right. It is disgusting and despicable.
They're like not even just sending; they're facilitating.
Right. And you want to pretend like these people on the left, they want to pretend like they care about these lives and these women and these children. How about stop putting them through this horrible crap?
Right. And honestly, Matt Taibbi talked about that with Tucker. He said, I cannot wait to see, one, who was running the country for the last 3 years. We're not really sure. We would really like to know. And who facilitated this? Who thought that this is a good idea? And we just, I can't wait to see if this administration actually lets us in a little bit, because that's what I voted for. I voted for transparency, and I want to know who was running the government. I want to know about COVID. I want to know about this vaccine. I want to know about Fauci. I want all of these people. This is my closing statement, I guess. Yeah. All of these people that got crazy pardons to be hauled in front of Congress because they have no Fifth Amendment rights anymore. And I want them to have to admit what they did and what they were doing. I want all of Fauci's emails unredacted so that the world can read what was going on. Yep. Now the CIA that Trump's in there can say it was a lab leak, but 8 years ago, whatever it was, five years, 6 years ago, when he said it could be a lab leak, he was relentlessly mocked and called a conspiracy theorist. We're on the verge of the fact that we are running out of conspiracy theories that are not true. So
so far we're about 67 and 0.
Yeah. So when I hear that word, I'm just like, oh, probably.
Yep.
Right. When someone's like, this is a wild, when you hear that from the government, this is a wild conspiracy theorist. Like, be careful. You don't want to say that.
Yeah. And well, I can't wait to see the JFK stuff, because that's where that term,
we have a couple days left.
That's where that term originated.
Right.
Was people who speculated that it was the government or the CIA or whoever who carried that out and did that. And the government, protecting themselves, started calling everyone conspiracy theorists.
Right. Let's see the week, what to expect. When will they be declassified? It's supposed to be 15 days from when he signed it.
Yeah.
Within 15 days, they give them 45 days to make a plan. Okay. Anyway.
How about don't make a plan and just make it public information immediately?
Right. All of it. Because who's
I don't need a plan.
Yeah. Just let
why
us
are
see
you
it.
planning on what to release? How about you just release the whole thing?
Why like did Mike Pompeo beg Trump not to release it? Like, we need to see it. And then, Kash Patel was talking, he said, they said, they were talking about the JFK files, and he's like, they're like, I just don't understand why it's released. And Kash is like, well, you're talking to someone who's read them. It's like,
I know, I can't wait.
Like,
that gave me the chills. I was like, oh man, this is good.
Yeah. So anyway, well, listen, we got to do this again. I think we should speak offline about maybe some type of sports podcast.
Sure. I'm totally about it. I mean, football is really my thing. I don't know if I'm equipped to. I would have to watch a whole lot more basketball and baseball and hockey to.
That's right.
To know. I used to be much bigger into hockey, and baseball, but basketball's always been. I feel like that's been going down the tube pretty quick. So
I completely agree. It's hard for me to watch. My daughter plays basketball, so I'll watch that. But anyway,
but we definitely should do that. All right,
dude. Thanks for coming on, man.
You got it. Go Birds.